Surprise math-related warm-up. Who learns better? Those who try the problems and maybe get them wrong, or those who wait for the teacher to tell the steps? Respond in your notebook. Remember to give a reason for your thoughts. Pause here. When I was still a TA, a high school put me in a math class. After 3 successive quizzes, I saw a pattern. Students who didn't do homework were throwing away minimum 25% of their grade and learning. Just copying the answer is one way to learn. But trying the answer, maybe getting it wrong, learning where the mistake happened, and learning how to correct that mistake gives you 4 levels of learning beyond just copying. When we work constructively to understand the mistake, the strategy to solve the problem stays with us better than if we just memorized the solution. When students are mindful of incorrect solution concepts while working on a problem, they are able to deal with the problem at a much deeper level than someone who is just presented with the correct solution and has to memorize it. Also, we should not just correct a mistake, but make sure that students recognize and understand the reason for the mistake. This learning mindset translates to reading too. A waiting reader passively reads page by page with little thought of what may come next. A trying reader actively attempts to predict what comes next. If a reader's predictions are found to be spot on or are found to be wildly off base, either way, there is an interaction taking place between reader and text. This interaction strengthens comprehension, memory, and enjoyment. Predicting is the skill of hypothesizing what will happen next, or what information you may learn. It is an extension of our pre-read questions. With predicting, readers attempt to supply answers to these pre-read questions as we read. The main time almost everyone predicts is when reading or watching a mystery.
In other words, the whole damn town knows you. Come on, get out of here. Come on.
Please, Eddie, don't tell me that you're making a big mistake. I didn't kill anybody. I swear. This whole thing's a setup, a scam, a frame job. Out! Eddie, I could never hurt anybody. Out!
When the criminal is revealed, we feel either pride in solving the puzzle or astonishment at how clever the answer is hidden. Predicting should be used in all forms of reading. For news articles and textbooks, use the headlines, subheadings, and pictures to create questions for what you want to learn from the article. Then, before reading, supply your own hypotheses. For fiction, think of what you already know about the story so far and hypothesize what might happen next and how might the story turn out. To start predicting, use your pre-read questions. Give them possible answers based on what you already know. For today's model, I'm going to use pre-read question number 2 from our Journey to the Center of the Earth chart. Why would Harry go with his Uncle Von Hardwig to the center of the Earth? We know at this point that Harry believes that following Saknussem's clues will be dangerous. We know Harry fears that Von Hardwig's reckless tendencies can be physically damaging, and we know that Von Hardwig has strong control over Harry's actions. When predicting, try and be as specific as you can. I predict that Harry will give a list of reasons why a trip to the center of the Earth would be dangerous. Uncharted, less oxygen, hard to plan for the unknown. Harry will also try to make von Hardwig think Saknussem's decoded message is a hoax. Von Hardwig will force Harry on the adventure by dismissing every opposition without providing a counter-argument. Von Hardwig will say that the journey is a multi-person job and that advancing science is worth more than their lives. Now, with our predictions ready, we read. We start at once. My horror may be conceived. I resolved, however, to show no fear. Scientific reasons were the only ones likely to influence my uncle. Now, there were many against this terrible journey. The very idea of going down to the center of the earth was simply absurd. I determined, therefore, to argue the point after dinner. Harry will use scientific reasons. Henry, he said in a soft and winning voice, I have always believed you ingenious, and you have rendered me a service never to be forgotten. Without you, this wondrous discovery would never have been made. It is my duty, therefore, to insist on your sharing the glory. Von Hardwig is being kinder than I thought. He is in good humor, thought I. I'll soon let him know my opinion of glory. In the first place, he continued, you must keep the whole affair a profound secret. There is no more envious race of men than scientific discoveries. Many would start on the same journey. At all events, we will be the first in the field. I doubt you have many competitors, was my reply. A man of real scientific acquirements would be delighted at the chance. Advancing science. But, my dear sir, is not this paper very likely to be a hoax? Bingo! I urged. Scarcely were the words out of my mouth when I was sorry I had uttered them. My uncle looked at me with a dark and gloomy scowl, and I began to be alarmed for the results of our conversation. There's the reckless temper of danger. We shall see, he remarked with decisive emphasis. But see, what is this about Eucol and Snuffles and this Scarturus? I have never heard anything about them. The very point to which I am coming. This, said my uncle, is one of the best maps of Iceland. I believe it will settle all your doubts, difficulties, and objections. With a grim hope to the contrary, I stooped over the map. Chapter 4. We start on the journey. You see, the whole island is composed of volcanoes, said the professor, and remarked carefully that they all bear the name of Jökull. The word is Icelandic and means a glacier. In most of the lofty mountains of that region, the volcanic eruptions come forth from ice-bound caverns. Hence the name applies to every volcano on this extraordinary island. Impossible, cried I, startled and shocked at the thought. Why impossible? Said Professor Hardwig in his severest tones. Because its crater is choked with lava, by burning rocks, by infinite dangers. But if it be extinct, that would make a difference. My uncle had an answer for everything. I accept all your explanations, I said. And Saknussemm is right. He found out the entrance to the bowels of the earth. He has indicated correctly, but that he or anyone else ever followed up on the discovery is madness to suppose. Why so, young man? All scientific teaching, theoretical and practical, shows it to be impossible. I care nothing for theories, retorted my uncle. Uncharted, yes and no. The map showed that Saknussemm's clues do mark a starting point, but whether snacknism actually made the trip is still conjecture. But is it not well known that heat increases 1 degree for every 70 feet you descend into the earth, which gives a fine idea of the central heat? All the matters which compose the globe are in a state of incandescence. Even gold, platinum, and the hardest rocks are in a state of fusion. What would become of us? Don't be alarmed at the heat, my boy. How so? Neither you nor anybody else knows anything about the real state of the Earth's interior. All modern experiments tend to explode the older theories. Were any such heat to exist, the upper crust of the Earth would be shattered to atoms, and the world would be at an end. It is not a lack of oxygen they fear, but the heat. Now comes a new question. How will they deal with the heat? A new question, more predictions. I do not believe in the dangers and difficulties which you, Henry, seem to multiply, and the only way to learn is like Arnie Sacknism, to go and see. Well, cried I, overcome at last, let us go and see. So, von Hardwig does not believe in the dangers and difficulties. Thus ended our memorable conference, which roused a perfect fever in me. Leaving my uncle, I went forth like one possessed. Reaching the banks of the Elbe, I began to think, was all I had heard really and truly possible? Was my uncle in his sober senses, and could the interior of the earth be reached? Was I the victim of a madman, or was he a discoverer of rare courage and grandeur of conception? Overall, my predictions were somewhat on and somewhat off target. This is good for an interactive reader. The back and forth between my mind with what's in the text and my hypotheses creates an engaged reader. Even mid-read, I came up with new questions and predictions. Congrats, you are now actively reading through a prediction and discovery dialogue with the text. Email your prediction and discovery chart to the elaconnection@gmail.com. Your thoughts may be featured in a future video. Join us next week when we think aloud about dealing with confusion. Till then, interact with your text as an active reader.